morning, everyone. I was here 11 years ago. I think it was in Key West. RetailSpaces was #1. So, and here we are 11 years later. Haven't aged a bit. Everything's exactly the same, right? And retail has not changed a bit. What a panel. We have 25,000 plus or minus locations up on stage right now. AGI has 3 factories. They fill up the 24,997. So delighted. Danni Gallagher, Rob from Kroger, Terri from 7-Eleven. I know Terri from her Wawa days. What a legend in that space. So one of the very first things, first of all, let's just get intros. Danni, introduce yourself.
Sure.
Legend at CVS.
Hey, good morning. I'm Danni Gallagher. I'm with CVS. I am the Vice President of Planning, Design, and Construction, and I represent teams across the country, and we work towards basically all real estate concepts and all of our business units. So everything from the healthcare side under the Aetna platform, Caremark, some of our Oak Street, and then, of course, CVS Pharmacy.
Thank you.
Hi, good morning, everyone. Rob Lancaster. I'm head of real estate development for Kroger. I represent 22 brands across the country. Our banners represent from Ralph's on the West Coast to Harris Teeter on the East Coast, around 2,800 locations, and growing every day. So happy to be here, and look forward to the next hour.
Hi, everyone. Terri Micklin. I currently lead all of store development and facilities for 7-Eleven US and Canada, so about 13,000 locations. My whole background's in fuel and convenience retailing. So I'm about 4 months in with 7-Eleven. You'll probably hear me talk a little bit about some of the other companies that I've worked with and just what's happened across the convenience and the small format industry over the years.
Thank you. And I'm James Bell, SVP of Sales and Marketing for AGI. And we participate in a lot of the influence group events across various markets, so delighted to be here. So I'm going to throw it out first. Construction. It's gotten very expensive. It's gotten costly. Money's expensive. And we had this little debate early on. Like everyone says there's 3 things. There's time, cost, quality. What's most important? Everyone wants all 3. Good cost, ideal, perfect quality, and speed. Danni, what's the most important to CVS Health?
I don't think we can differentiate on our side from one to the other. I mean, we deliver on all 3, or we're expected to deliver on all 3. I think the initiative may drive one to the forefront. So, if we're trying to get to market with something new concept, a new platform idea, merchandising effort, whatever it might be, it may be more about the speed at that point, just so that we're in the forefront of it. But every conversation comes along with the dollar sign, right? Every one of them says, hey, we need to lower these costs. We need to be more efficient. We need to stretch this further. And then, of course, quality, we can't cut on quality. So, and that's when we really rely on our partners.
For sure. Thoughts, Rob?
Yeah, that's a tough one. I think the answer is yes, yes, and yes. It's interesting, the cost situation, no secret to this room. It's really become critical, and we're chasing every dollar. But when we announce we're opening X new stores for the year, and we have to hit that number. And there are a lot of people relying on us to open those stores, especially the store leaders, operations, and the merchants. So speed is critical. Once we identify and say we're opening on a date, everything lines up to that. So speed is critical. So everything's important, but boy, I'm always after speed and hitting those dates that we commit to.
Yeah, we're in the customer service industry, right? From a retail perspective, our job is to make sure the doors are open so the customers can come in, we can serve them appropriately. So you have to do all 3, right? Cost is always going to be important. We need to hit our metrics. The quality needs to represent what your brand is talking about. But in the end, we need partners that are going to help us deliver with predictability and consistency so that we can hit our goals and our timelines. Time's always going to jump to the forefront, if not for any other reason, just to make sure that we understand what the timeline is and we're communicating it and planning against that appropriately. So sometimes it's not always you have to be the fastest out of the gate, but you have to be really, really predictable and thoughtful and considerate in what you're communicating from a timeline perspective, because that's largely what we're focused on. We're setting up much broader plans to serve the customer, to know when that customer can come in.
Right. Thank you. Terri, we were talking a week or two ago, a little planning session, and I think about your portfolio. I made the point, we're headquartered in Virginia Beach. There's a ton of 7-Elevens in the Virginia Beach area. Some of them are a little dated, and then you're opening up these beautiful new stores that are gorgeous. How that whole, when you're managing 13,000 stores, it's a lot. It's a lot of real estate. It's a lot of managers. To keep it fresh, to make sure it's the consistent experience. If I'm walking into a brand new store in Tyler, Texas, and I'm walking into a store in Virginia Beach that's maybe 40 years old, how do you deliver that consistent customer experience?
Yeah, and really what you're talking about is operational excellence, right? I mean, you want every customer, every guest to come in and feel valued in your stores. And it's challenging when you have a really large portfolio of locations. Over time, right, you need to get back, you need to reinvest, you need to do all of those things. The one call out I would say for our folks, right, when you're in the development space, is think about the things that you can do to make operational excellence easy for your teammates, for your associates that are working in the stores, right? How consistent can you be from design to design? How much are you thinking about their workflow, how many steps they need to take, what they need to clean, what equipment's in the store? Those small decisions unlock ease and scalability for the store level associates. So really what it comes down to is you can build the most beautiful stores, you have to think about how are they going to run them once you're not there. Because you're there for one moment in time at the new store opening, that store lives on after that. The thing you have to do is make sure that the teams can really deliver that brand promise over and over again.
Love that. Danni, same thing. You got 9,000 stores. Some are shiny new toys and some are a little dated. How do you maintain that customer experience? Because the customer experience, the expectation is higher than it's ever been. The customer experience is very key.
It's difficult. I mean, I will say the larger the portfolio, the harder it gets. We've spent a lot of time in the last 12, 18 months really just taking a look at our markets. And so we've taken a priority market approach. So as we move into a market, you may get 1 or 2 new stores, and they're beautiful, right? They're gorgeous. However, we've got 80 that are just around the corner. And so we've really kind of stepped back and said, how do we start to elevate the market as a whole? And knowing you can't put the investment like you would a new store, right? We're not the kind of concept that you can tear down and rebuild on the same pad and have the shiny new. So we're really trying to come back into the space and figure out what does that investment look like, so that the opportunity, the customer service, the experience that they're getting in each space really starts to reflect our overall brand and the concept that we're trying to get to. And we've, we went into this year with 3, we're just trying to lift the entire market with 3 priority markets. And what we found was we consistently were hearing we need to pop into this market. We need to, and you'll actually see on some of the slides up there, sometimes it's nothing more than just really bringing that outside experience back, right? Like really refreshing it, making it look a little bit better. And then other times it's really resetting the entire store, right? It's bringing the entire interior back to life. So various different levels, but it is trying to kind of pull it all up. And then it's how far do you go out? Which then that becomes the next question, like how far do you stretch that until it really is, lifting the entire market so the experience is across the way.
Right, thank you. Rob, with 22 brands at Kroger. Obviously Kroger's the mother brand, the master brand, but 22 brands. When you go to West Coast, East Coast, how do you make sure you deliver that same experience across the whole brand portfolio?
Yeah, it's a tough order. First off, it's a lot about just planning and understanding what your portfolio is. So, seeing that understanding a portfolio, when they've been touched, when they've last been remodeled, and then, you know, depending on what's new, when has the latest initiative been rolled out in different areas? So we look at it nationally, but each division really hones in on their specific stores. What we're trying to do is not have two brands, you know. So, you know, if you have a shiny brand new Kroger and one that hasn't been touched, from a customer standpoint, you feel like you're going in two different places, and that's what we're trying to not have happen. You know, at the very least, they need to be clean, fresh, inviting, and then we build from there. But you know, you have X amount to invest. So where do you invest in bringing those up, and then where do you invest in bringing new? It's something we work through every day.
Thank you. One thing that was interesting, I just thought of this, Terri, especially in your space, you know, Racetrack I think they just announced they acquired Potbelly. So food is a big deal in your category, in your space, which has changed that whole customer experience. So you're there for fueling, and then you got EV charging. What does that do? So talk about food and how it relates to your industry, when your business at 7-Eleven, and what the customer expectation is, and how do you deliver on that?
It's a great question, and yeah, the news and the headlines this week have been pretty exciting. The more the small format space leans into food forward, differentiated offers, the better it gets for everyone. It's uplifting all of the brands, which is fantastic. So I'm really excited to see what they do with that. You know, we're trying to really give customers a reason to stop, not just along their journeys, but to become more and more of a destination. And it's a service industry, right? Like it is really in the name. And when we're talking about convenience stores, we're there to be convenient. And the one thing that the American consumer keeps leaning into and telling us is they want more food choices. And they want a variety of food choices, everything from good, healthy options to really decadent, indulgent treats. And you want to be able to provide that and have those sort of snacking cultural moments in your store. You know, and Rob, I love what Kroger does, right? They talk all the time about how food is a path to bring people together and to drive connections. And I think that's it, right? We've started in the beverage space with, you know, whether it be coffee, whether it be Slurpees, right? It's that moment of enjoyment. It's that moment of connection. So we've already gotten there with beverage, and then leaning more and more into really what are the opportunities around the food space. 7-Eleven today has multiple restaurant brands, from Laredo Taco, which you saw up on the screen, Raise the Roost, which is a chicken format, Speedy Cafe, which was part of our Speedway acquisition. And we're continuing to lean more and more into food trends. If you read the recent New York Times article, our new global CEO talked about the egg salad sando that's really, really popular in Japan, and our efforts to bring that to the United States, right? He talked about these fluffy pillows of goodness, right? Like,
Yummy.
I mean,
Sounds
that's what
lovely.
people want to shop and to come and to have that experience. And so we're trying to drive those connections through food every day.
Fluffy pillows of goodness. I love that.
Can't beat it, right?
I like that.
That's my takeaway. You know, the customers have higher expectations than ever before. That customer experience, experiential branding. A lot of our customers are like, you know, if you do a refresh, whether it be Wells Fargo with a new logo and Bank of America, whomever, you know, your signaling change. So then you've got to deliver that when you walk into the space. So if you're like, well, I'm gonna re-engage with this brand because something's changed, and you walk in and you have the same experience, or maybe a negative experience, then you've missed the mark. Brand is so important. How do you make sure you deliver that? Because Danny, you all have been running up the Heart logo in a very deliberate way. It's very, very clean, very nice, but to make sure that, you know, when you have that engagement, that it delivers in a very elevated way.
It's interesting when I think about what you're saying. You know, we talk about this a lot. We'll refresh the interior of the space and not change the brand, or it doesn't coincide with the same timing, I'll say, right, for a very myriad of reasons. And we talk about, well, how did they know that we made this interior so amazing when the brand is like the old, it's got a slash and the V is out, and it hasn't looked like we did anything, and yet you walk in the space and it's this elevated, amazing experience. So I think there is a commitment to having to really make sure from the outside in you're really reflecting that. Like I just don't think you can do it otherwise. Maybe the timing doesn't always work, but we are being more and more consistent as we look at when we're hitting a market or a location, to ensure that at least if we don't do it all at the same time, we are coming back. We are budgeting for it in the next cycle so that we can bring that brand image back. But with 9,000 stores, the other thing is it takes a while to get through them, right?
Sure.
And so, I mean, you can commit capital to it each and every year, but you're still rotating through. It takes timing. There's a lot of effort to it, and that's just to get that heart up there. So the heroic heart.
The heroic heart, love it.
Yeah.
Rob, with you all, with large stores. I mean, a CVS is what, 9,000 to 11,000 square feet ish, something like that. Your stores are massive.
Yeah,
Large format.
80,000 to 122,000, and somewhere in between, our square footages. And, I absolutely agree. I mean, it's, you have to tell the story of what you're doing inside. Inside, we're trying to create experiences. If you walk into a Mariano's in Chicago, they do an amazing job from a merchant standpoint of just putting together experience, world experiences. You can go to, a French merchant area where they have wine, cheese, everything featured. They do an amazing job with that. So it's really trying to do those experiences within. Our Murray's Cheese brand that came out of New York and we're rolling out across the country. It's an amazing experience where highly trained cheese professionals are there to help you. But telling the story on the outside is more challenging. We've developed over the last 5 years the fresh cart that we're attaching to all of our banners. So when you're in California or you're in Atlanta, you see the fresh cart, it's Kroger, even though you have a Ralph's and a Kroger. But tying the family of banners together with the fresh cart is something we're working hard to roll out across the country.
Interesting to see that. I think we were talking last week. I was in California for the month of August, but that logo at Ralph's goes back to the Kroger that I see back east and all the other platforms. So it's good to bring that one little brand icon. Right? You kind of tether it all together to have that one consistent icon. Yeah, which is interesting.
Yeah. And it also gives us an opportunity for national marketing, where right now with our 22 banners, we really have regional marketing. But if we can tie in that fresh cart and do some national marketing, Super Bowl or whatever, we can have the ability to do that also.
The marketing piece is key because you're probably one of the biggest voices of your marketing brand as you're out there. So the challenge I think we all face is you have marketing campaigns, you're hearing things on social media, seeing things. We are the physical manifestation of that brand. So you want to make sure that you maintain that as customers enter your forecourt and enter your store, that you're telling the same story. You don't want to sort of break that fourth wall where you're hearing one story in media and then you show up on the property and it looks and feels like something else. So I think that's our challenge that we face every day is, as your chains grow, as they're larger, as you're managing multiple brands, how do you consistently tell that same brand story through the physical asset? Because that's what the customer is going to believe. They're going to hear all of the marketing coming at them, but then they're going to go experience the store, and that's the brand that they really feel and see.
All about the experience, for sure. One of the things, I think there was a panel at RetailSpaces last year. One of the retailers made this comment that really resonated with me because at our company, we keep expanding our offering because the expectation of the customer just gets elevated and elevated. I remember the gentleman said, "I want fewer vendors, but vendors that can do more." That really hit home. What do you think about that comment? I mean, I think when you look at, because there's a lot of great vendor partners here in this room, the expectation of the vendor today? Like because you go to market, time is important, cost is important, all these things, but the expectation of that vendor partner today, what is that?
I mean, I will start and say, I don't know that it's few or less. What I see consistently within our organization is that vendor partner is truly a partner. They're an extension of us many times because of workload and variables out there, location, right? Like just because we're spread across the country, it's critical that partnership is truly there. And we're looking for the vendor to really be that extension of our team, to be out there and be our eyes, alert us to situations that they're dealing with, ensure that we have, we used to joke and say, if you see something, say something out there, right? We need to know, just because it is hard to get eyes on all of these things. I mean, we're on our projects, but that doesn't necessarily mean that you can be there every day of that project as it's going through. So I love it when a partner comes to us and they give us that opportunity to see and feel whatever they're dealing with out there. And then so it does become an extension. I get the fewer because maybe it's it's a little easier to maintain those relationships, but I think it's relative. I think it's just really relationship driven.
Right.
Yeah, I can't agree more. I mean, I'm looking out in the audience right now and I see some partners that I've dealt with for tens of, maybe a few more than tens of years. And the best scenario for me is when you can't tell where that person's check is coming from. So whether you're a Kroger associate or one of our vendors, if you walk into a meeting and we're working through a solution, I don't know the difference between a vendor and a Kroger associate. We just know we have a problem to solve and a goal in mind to get to. And and that partnership with the vendors is so critical. We have vendors we've worked with for years. We have vendors that are brand new and bringing us new solutions that we haven't even thought of. And you need a mix of those, and you need both of those coming at you all the time. But you have to. It's a partnership and it's a true team effort. And if it's working, it works really well.
Right, terrific. Thank you. Any thoughts there, Terri?
Yeah, yes and yes is really the answer.
Yeah.
We are looking for true partners that are credible, transparent with us. What I will also remind everyone is it's a two-way street. So from a vendor or supplier perspective, you need to be asking for the same thing from us. We need to be treating you as if you're our team members. We need to be sharing information with you in a meaningful way. And we want to feel like you're embedded into our teams. That's where sort of the magic happens, right? When you can scale up your business through these great partnerships and achieve so much more together as a group. And that's the exciting piece of it all. But it really does come down to that. It's not transactional anymore. And if it's feeling transactional on your side, push back and challenge that partnership from where you're sitting also.
That's fantastic. Very good points. So AI, it's a thing, right? I mean, it's like it's everywhere.
It's
a small thing.
It's a very small thing. A lot of value created in the AI space. Have you all leaned into that and how it impacts your business? Is there anything you care to share with the group? Some lessons learned or how it's making things more productive, more efficient?
Yeah, I'm happy to jump in first. Yeah, we're leaning into it heavily. I look at it like this. I have about 250, 275 real estate development associates, everything from engineers to real estate managers and everything in between. I want that group working on the highest level work that they can work on. And what I want is our real estate team to have more time behind the windshield and less time behind the screen. And I want our construction team to have more time in the field, more time with the cities, more time with the vendors, and that type of thing. So I'm really looking for AI solutions to take the work that isn't as high level off of their plate. So that's the first thing I'm looking for. And then the second thing I'm looking for is helping us just get through any complex solutions, get to any complex solutions that we need, and and get there fast. I think the biggest challenge that I have in my organization is just the level of clean data that I have to start with. We, as you can imagine, with 22 banners across the country, a Kroger that is developed through mergers and acquisitions, we have all kinds of stuff out there, different platforms, different data, some things still in paper, some things not. So step one for me has been, let's get some uniform data that we can work through. It's interesting, I was with our King Soopers team last week, and I was talking about this and talking about how daunting that is. One of our project managers raised his hand and says, why don't we just start small? Like, take one bite at it and then, move from there. And I'm like, this is why you come in the field and talk to the people in the field, because that's where the answers are. And so, I took that back, and we're gonna back down a little bit from the trying to eat the whole elephant of data and just take it one bite at a time. So that's probably a longer answer than you were looking for, it's a big topic with us, and we're trying to move fast on it.
Sure.
I like what you said. Just you managed to hit on two of my fundamentals in leadership approaches. One is good data is good leadership. It starts with really, really good data, and you need to have that consistency in place, because to unlock the capabilities of AI, it starts with how good your data actually is. The second piece is really, I tell my team all the time, stack small wins, right? You don't have to jump for the giant goal, just stack small wins. And I think AI is actually a great tool to use that mentality. Think of all of the transactional processes first, right? Tackle that with AI. They're easy. It's something you can probably even do in-house. You don't necessarily even need robust third-party partnerships to get there. Start there, stack those small wins, and then use that to build out the next phase, right? Where you're starting to get into really learning protocols and more complex solutions. You don't have to do it all today, but it is going to come, and more tools are going to be developed faster and faster that are going to help our teams be more efficient, more strategic, and be out on site more often.
Yeah, I think that's exactly where we've been at is, we've taken this approach that there are a lot of transactional, there are a lot of components that they just take time. And so if we can engage AI, if we can look at, this learning so that we're not physically taking the time to, review lean releases, right? Like, can we do it? You do have to be careful though, right? The hallucinations that come out of it, you have to go back and really read that data. We have found a few things, but we've leaned into it. We've tried to lean into it in the field, and it's a little bit more difficult, I think, sometimes with design. But I see all of the teams kind of moving it at different levels. So sometimes it's really just trying to be more efficient in your daily workflow. But there are those efforts that are a bit larger. But we're all in that same space. It's happening fast. We talked about digital twinning last night, right? And I keep reminding myself, how important that is going to be in our space to really, what can you do in that digital space that you can then apply to your 9,000 locations or however many concepts that you have to look at.
Well, speaking of digital, so, everyone wants to have a screen or some kind of an interactive something in their place of business. Some companies do it really well. Some really miss the mark. Or you have content that never gets changed, or the screen is out. Do you have a digital, like a true digital strategy in your place of business where it's more of an elevated customer experience, where you're going away from posters to digital content? Whatever that might look like. And do you guys...
So when I think about digital, I think about we're right now we're rolling out a new touch screen opportunity within the store. So as you're at checkout, you've got this touch screen ability. If you're at pharmacy, you've got touch screen. We have it on our phones. If you have the app, you can do quite a bit in there. Everything from make sure your prescription is ready, tell it to queue it up, you know, you can have it.
I use my CVS coupons
You
all the
should use
time.
your
on my
coupons.
app.
There's my plug for, you know, send it to your app so you don't get the mile-long receipt that we are famous for. But yeah, so I mean, we are introducing it more. We use it all the way through unlocking cabinets, and you know, we have a test pilot out there right now. Not unknown to anybody in the room, but our LPE issues have been an issue, right? And so we lock everything up. That changes the customer experience when you come into the space. So we started this concept to have the mobile app be able to unlock the cabinet, but it depends on who's savvy enough and can they understand the app, and then does the cabinet work, which becomes the other thing. Yeah, so the digital platform for us, it runs through a lot of different things. It's not just about the graphic or the image. We took down the digital platform on the signs out front years ago, or we didn't take them down and we left them, but they no longer read the right message. But you know, inside the store, we're trying to key it up. You'll see TV screens, you'll see, you know, different platforms. So it's just as it works through each you know, opportunity, I think we're looking to try to advance it in that space, and then so you got to keep it running, right? That becomes the other part.
It, right. How about you, Rob?
I think for Kroger, we lean in heavily on our Kroger app. You know, that's our main digital platform. From an in-store experience, it's really about storytelling within the store, and so we do have some digital cues there. Our fuel program, we have digital cues there also. And then we're working right now with various EV companies as we install EV on our parking lots to have some digital media there. We have an entire separate digital media company, 8451, that does an amazing job from a digital standpoint for us. And you know, they mine a ton of data and really make sure that, you know, whatever we're showing is what the customers in that specific trade area are looking for. But the Kroger app is really where we interact the most with the customer, and you know, they're pretty loyal to our app. So we keep getting better and better with that. It's interesting you mentioned the digital coupons, because we've actually gotten a lot of feedback from customers that they miss the paper coupons, which we got rid of paper coupons and only have digital coupons, and so in some specific markets we're rolling out paper coupons again. So look for those in, I don't know, in your mailer, I guess, you know. So
old school.
I was going to say your newspaper, but
What's
who gets that,
you
know? So
what's old is new again.
I just think it's interesting, you know, like following what the customer says is so important. You know, coming out of COVID, I think we all thought the customer was going one direction and realized that they're going every direction. So I can tell you at our organization, we're listening to the customer more than we've ever listened to them to really understand what they're looking for. So it's an interesting time.
Awesome.
Well, I love the new kiosks at CVS, by the way.
That's awesome.
Our local store just got upgraded, so I was able to go in this week and get my prescription before I came to the show. It's fantastic. And I think as our stores get more and more digitally engaged, right, there's two pieces of it. One is the digital strategy, and so hopefully your companies are putting in the time and energy to build out the larger digital teams, whether you're developing your own retail media network, whether you're just working really from a marketing perspective. I think for us, the important piece is to understand that digital complexity that's coming into the stores, what it takes to get all of that up and running, what it takes to get it maintained, right? That conversion process on a new store level, it's starting to become where the digital piece of it is one of the most challenging pieces at the tail end of the project that you need to plan for, make sure you have the right partners in place, and that you can execute with excellence at all times. And then the other piece is make sure you've got the maintenance programs in place to really maintain and keep everything up and running, because when that does go out, it becomes really noticeable and very visual to the customer. Interestingly, right, the world of past is if something happened with a sign, you could just remove it. These screens are permanent fixtures in our stores now, so you really need to make sure you've got plans to keep them running 24/7.
Yeah, the whole content management, I think, is where a lot of companies miss the mark. You know, they have a great strategy. It looks great when it's first deployed, 3 months later, it's the same message. It's like, well, come on, you got to keep it up. Rob, you mentioned EV a moment ago. That's a big deal, right? So everyone, back in the day, you go to 7-Eleven to get gas or a racetrack or Wawa, whatever, and maybe a Coke and a smile. But with EV charging, everyone can deliver that experience. Like, do you have an EV strategy? Because I think a lot of our customers have really leaned into that, and like it really, whether it be Taco Bell or Walmart or the local auto dealership who wants to deliver that service to their customer. Do you have an EV strategy? Is that impacting your business in any way?
I don't think we have a EV strategy per se. We have plenty of opportunity where we have EV on site or really next to our site. We haven't found, there was this period of time where the thought was, if you've got the individual charging the car, you're bringing that, what else are they going to do while they're charging? They'll come shop the store. That's not necessarily how the customer works in that situation. Most times they are sitting in their car and they're probably on their phone. So then it becomes what's the investment on the site? What's the maintenance piece of it look like? Is it front and center? Is it taking up your parking? So there's other components to it. I'd say we're more dealing with it in a case-by-case basis. I mean, there are requirements in some areas, some jurisdictions where we have it, or the landlord has something, and we're combining our site with a field that's an EV charging field. So we see it more and more. I mean, it's out there for sure. I don't think it's not necessarily an integrated part of our strategy at this point, though.
Okay. Terri, how about you? I mean, obviously,
We have a dedicated EV
petrol.
strategy.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, for sure.
If you drive an EV vehicle, please download the 7Charge app. We have our own proprietary EV charging platform called 7Charge. We continue to build and grow. We're really trying to focus on where is that customer intercept that they're looking for from a charging perspective. We're moving with the industry as it grows. And I think there's a lot of opportunities for folks to leverage, right? What is that EV charging opportunity when someone is in your parking lot, visiting your stores? The conversion, though, for that dwell time, it's challenging. The majority of the consumer does want to remain in their vehicle. Sometimes they even want things brought to their vehicle. They're not necessarily coming to you to leverage that service, and so it's an amenity you're providing. So think about the other amenities that go along with it and how you're delivering against those, right? As you stop, the number one thing that people do is they want to use a restroom. So are your restrooms publicly accessible? Are they clean? Are you proud of them? That starts the first piece, and then the second piece is what are those other amenities that they're likely going to want and want to interact with? Oftentimes it's a beverage or maybe a snack, but more often than not, they're really looking for an opportunity for themselves to unwind, and they're going to stay in their vehicle during that time period. But if you want to be in the EV space, I would say have a strategy for it and make those really tough decisions around, do you want to make the capital investment on your properties and then maintain it going forward? The number one complaint really from a U.S. EV consumer today is uptime. So as you work across finding the right partners, as you're expanding your program, I would not say to everyone, go find a proprietary program. That's unique to really that fuel and convenience brands that are leaning into some of those spaces. But if you're looking for a partner across your retail chain, really think about what are they saying about your brand, because that's what the customer is going to affiliate with. And uptime is the number one challenge still today.
Yeah, it's interesting. Real quick on that. We look at EV less as a destination for someone coming with EV. It's more of an expectation from a grocery shopper. So we have a little bit, obviously a different model. So you're going to already spend some time inside a grocery store. So while you're there, you'd like to get charged. So it's, from our customer standpoint, it's more of an expectation that it's there while they're shopping versus they're coming to Kroger to get their car charged. A little bit different model, but I agree. Understand what your customer is looking for and have that strategy, and then execute on it.
Fascinating. It's interesting. You mentioned the reliability. I think the data is like 24% of the charging units that are out there don't work. You get there, you talk about how to really turn something into a very negative experience. Oh, if there's a charging station, oh, it doesn't work. Then you have a terrible brand experience, so which is not good. Here's something. So 3 very, very different companies here. What are maybe the top 2 things that keep you up at night, that makes you anxious, for CVS, for Kroger, for 7-Eleven? I'll throw it to you first, Danny. Like, what's the headwind right now that, like, man, it's just this is the hardball that I've got to figure out?
I think about our teams a lot. I mean, we're trying to manage multiple concepts, multiple initiatives. It seems that, the pressures, the headwinds in front of us to deliver faster, to keep costs down, to constantly be innovating, and it weighs on the team. I mean, I'm constantly looking at what our pipeline looks like, and then what that, what their overall performance metrics are, right? And so how much are we putting on those individuals? How much are we engaging them? How much are we giving back to them and keeping them, pulling them into it? So I do worry about it a lot. We do engagement surveys, with our teams, and so really getting the feedback from the organization. Their success means that we're successful as a department, and I need to ensure that that they have the right amount of support, and that they know that we're behind them. So I think a lot about that, having the right skill sets, ensuring that we have such a wide range of individuals that are able to support everything from capital planning through design, and then into the field with the construction partners. So that's probably a really big one. And knowing, the other thing that we're shifting towards is really trying to make sure that we have this local presence. And it's not we were always put that 13,000 square foot box on the corner and ensure that we were head to head at the intersection of Main and Main. It's not necessarily that anymore. It's really about being local to the community. And so as we're making decisions and partnering, what kind of experience are we bringing? What's that concept look like? How are we addressing the needs of the communities that we're in? And we've moved more from the convenience corner store to this healthcare platform. And so we want to be there for the patients. We want to understand the needs of that community. So it's all of these pieces that kind of come together. So I worry about the people, and then I worry about the places that we're into. So everything keeps me up at night.
All of it?
All of it. And I'm going to go, and that too, when they respond.
Exactly.
I love any answer that begins with the people. That was awesome. Because the team. It's always about the team. Rob?
Yeah, I would echo the people. So I 100% agree and love everything that you said, Danny. The piece I would add is, from a delivery of our stores, just the amount of people going into trades, especially around refrigeration, HVAC, electric, mechanical, any of that. That pool is getting smaller and smaller, and so costs are obviously going up, but that's just one problem. The other problem is just having enough people to be on site to build your location in those trades. I had the opportunity to have lunch with a small group of development leaders with the chairman of the Atlanta Federal Reserve, and we were talking about this issue, and boy, talking about a humbling moment. So there were about 10 or 12 of us around the table having lunch, and he said, so at the table, raise your hand if you encouraged your son or daughter to go into the trades. And not one hand at the table went up. And like I said, talking about a humbling moment. So, we have to fix our own issue. And I think as an industry, we can work together to get there. But that's a big challenge for us, especially around refrigeration. Boy, if you are a refrigeration technician, I'll be right outside. So.
Well, I mean, not to copy the theme, but I probably spend 80% of my time worrying about the people, spending time making sure people are in the right seats, feeling valued, feeling empowered. You know, it really comes down to that. Our folks today, with all of the technology, all of the data, we talked about this, at some of the beginning levels of our organizations, their job's gotten so much more complex in an effort to make our job at the leadership side a lot easier, right? And so really taking the time to understand how they're doing, whether or not you're supporting them, whether they have the tools they need to be successful. I spend more of my time doing that than anything else. But to add on to sort of the overall conversation, I spend a lot of time, I think, in Headspace on adaptability, because the one thing we know is change is coming. You know, volatility, adaptability, like these are normal terms now in our world. And so really thinking about how can we prepare ourselves for being as flexible as possible, whether it's changing our org structures around as we need to, whether it's implementing new tools, whether it's thinking about our physical spaces and how the customer is going to interact with us in the future. We talked about digital coming into the stores, interacting with us through their apps versus through the physical space. You know, all of that continues to change, and that's the one thing I really try and focus on is, you know, what are we going to do and how quickly can we move to be, if possible, in front of those changes, but if nothing else, at least quickly adapting and quickly moving with them.
I think my team thinks that my favorite word is pivot. They're like, is it time to pivot? Because you're right. We have to change, you know? I mean, it is responding to the next idea or initiative that's kind of handed to us with this expectation. You know, one of the things that I think has been happening, and I'm sure it's across all three of our organizations, is that you're constantly delivering in this, you know, fast-paced environment. And we're very proud of how quickly we move through things. But then that is now the expectation. You've literally raised the bar, and that is the new norm. And so when you talk about your people and you're like, their careers, their roles, their jobs are fundamentally different than they were 3 years ago or a year ago even, right? And so we are constantly kind of lifting it and saying, and by the way, I mean, you did it in 3 days last time. So, I mean, how fast can we build this store? So.
It's amazing.
I love the change topic. I think, you know, in performance discussions, the adaptability to change piece has moved all the way to the top, you know. So you're already in the room because functionally you have the tools to do the job, but can you adapt to change? You know, when we have performance discussions, has you know, elevated higher than it's ever elevated before, because, you know, to everyone's point, everything moves fast, everything is changing. You know, I was in a meeting with one of our groups the other day, and somebody said, boy, I'm really afraid of AI taking my job. And my answer was, we shouldn't be afraid of AI taking any of our jobs. We should be afraid of people that embrace AI taking our jobs. That's going to be the difference. You need to be able to change and adapt and embrace it, and then be that change agent for the company moving forward. If you're that person, you're going to have a strong career. And I think that the change piece is so critical, and everything moves a lot faster than it ever has.
For sure. That's a great topic. A couple of last things here before we get some Q&A with the audience here. What's one thing that you think will get easier going forward in your roles in development, what have you? And then what's one thing that's going to get harder? So the one thing that's going to get easier first. Nothing?
Nobody wants to take that one.
I mean, maybe it's a technology piece, or maybe it's, I know one thing that's not getting easier, at least in our world, is permits. Permits are a pain in the ass. It takes longer. The city, they work on Tuesdays and Thursdays from 8 to 11. That's it. You can't get a hold of anybody, and it's a critical path item. So permits, I know it's a bugaboo in our world.
I literally cannot think of one thing that is going to get easier. I'm like, that
they gave
was
us a
not a
question ahead of
softball. That was not a softball. Like,
Nothing is a fair answer.
Yeah.
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 I do think
Oh.
there's a data piece to it. You know, as we get more and more technology tools, like I think about simple stuff that's easier for me today than it was a couple decades ago, right? Like as we have more access to information and better access to information and better tools, in some ways I think decision making is getting easier because I have more opportunity to really dissect and understand what the risks are than ever before. So for me, I think the advances in technology that we are seeing are going to help a lot of the tactical processes get better, for sure. And then they're helping leaders make better decisions faster. But you're 100% right? If the thing that's hardest for us right now, it's this kind of lag of time due to all of the bureaucratic process tied to permitting entitlements going on in our industry. If we could take even a semblance of all the things that we're doing to make our businesses more efficient and get that into the public sector, that would be game-changing for us. The one constant has been that the governmental timelines are getting longer and longer. Now, they're also getting more predictable at the same time. Like some of the steps that we're going through, we're seeing them over and over and over again. But with that predictability is coming much longer timelines that we have to manage through and challenge our teams to navigate. And I think that's really going to be the question, is how can we adapt some of these tools to make that part of the process so much simpler for us and really help the municipalities migrate through all the data and all the challenges they're getting as well.
I think one of the, as I had a minute to think through the easier question, you know, I think the new talent, the new younger people coming into our organization are absolutely amazing. You know, we've hired a handful of new real estate managers over the last year or so, and you know what they're bringing to our organization, they're already making a huge impact in year one. So I do think that year one impact for new associates, especially coming right out of school, is getting easier and making things easier because they're making that automatic immediate impact. So I'm really encouraged by the talent that's been joining us, and I think that's making things easier on that year one. I think, you know, from a harder standpoint, I just think the predictability and the stability continues to be challenging, and I think it's going to continue to be challenging. So, you know, trying to navigate through that, you know, I don't want to bring up the tariff word, but I'll bring it up, right? One day we're planning for this tariff, one day we're planning for that tariff. The next day it's this one, that. So, you know, just the unpredictability of that, you know, you just have to work through it. You know, if I get asked one more time, like, what's that doing to our costs? I mean, my quick answer is, I have no friggin' idea, you know? And I clean that up for the audience, you know? But, so, you know, predictability, stability, I think will continue to get tougher, but I think we're going to get better at managing it. So I think, you know, we'll work through it.
Perfect. You know, one of the key things, you know, in our post-COVID world, which is what's been 5 years now, wow, it's still about the people. It's for any organization, whether it be AGI, whether it be CVS, 7-Eleven, Kroger, it's the people. We're still in the people business, you know, and retaining people, empowering people. I love, you know, and I love, Danny, when you said the very first thing is the team. Worrying about the team, because we're only as good as our people. In this post-COVID world, what is the thing that you think has changed for the better, and maybe what's one thing that's changed for the worse? I mean, a negative result and a positive result. Let's do the positive first, because it's Monday morning.
That's right.
I mean, for me, some of it is the lessons we learned going through COVID has been a positive in terms of making us better at what we do. You know, we've learned some tough lessons, right? How many of us were disrupted from a supply chain perspective, trying to keep building programs going during COVID, right? So now we've all learned thoughts of thoughtfulness about not leaning into sole source suppliers, having multiple options both for product and sometimes even place of origin as we now talk about things like tariffs, Rob, that you're talking about, right? You need to think about where's everything coming from, how are you sourcing it, what are your options in front of yourself? And I think we've created those nice changes in our organizations that's made us a little bit more versatile. I think the other side of the coin, and this is maybe the one that goes both ways, it is around the people. We've changed the way we work, right? There's a lot of companies that are really going fully back to office. Some companies are still leaning into remote, and then a lot of people are working hybrid. And I think what that means is that for the working population, for folks coming out of school looking for their jobs, they have more options than they have ever had. It is very much sort of like their buyer's market right now. They get to choose. And so it's hard for us as, if you're leveraging big teams, to really make sure that you're doing what you need to do to get the right talent, to maintain that talent, and to value them in the moment. So I take it as two sides of the coin, right? It's made our jobs a little bit more challenging. It's forcing us to level up and meet that new team member where they want to be met and really give them the work environment that they're craving.
There's the challenge too, and I'll just add on to that because it's really the same answer, but there's also the challenge too when you are spread across the country and you are in a hybrid kind of situation and you do have corporate offices, but then you have individuals who aren't anywhere near an office, right? How do you really bring that team environment together? Like, what can you do to facilitate? Because Teams is great. We're on video conferences, whatever platform you're using, but it's different than just having, you know, that locked-in team. So it takes a little bit to look at it differently.
So I want to thank the panelists for an excellent discussion. Thank you, James, for a great job moderating. But on the question thing, everyone's going to be around for a bit, so the conversations can continue in the hallway. So thank you, guys. Round of applause for our panelists.
Thank you, guys.